Welcome to Football's Golden Oldies from the Toll House Inn, Lancaster. Robert Dennis, Danny Blanchflower. The great fallacy about football is that the game is first and last about winning. It's nothing of the kind. The game is about glory. It's about doing things in style, with a flourish, about going out and beating the other lot, not waiting for them to die of boredom. That was a great Danny Blanchflower in 1972, and nothing's changed. Cheeky Charlie Mitten. Charlie was born in Rangoon, Burma on January 17, 1921, where his father, who was a sergeant major, was stationed. He signed with Manchester United in 1936 and was in the junior side with Stan Pearson and Johnny Carey, but with the outbreak of war, his first professional appearance did not come until 1946. He proved himself as an excellent winger and was part of a talented forward line which became known as the famous five. Jimmy Delaney scored 25, Johnny Morris with 32, Jack Rowley with 182, Stan Pearson with 127 and Charlie Mitten with 50, 416 goals for Manchester United. In 4 years, United finished second in the league 3 times and in 4th place once. The 1948 FA Cup final, when they beat Blackpool 4-2, is still remembered as one of the greatest finals of all time. The first trophy since 1911, a 37-year wait, was worth it. Johnny Carey on the shoulders of Charlie Mitten and Jack Crompton. Director Harold Hardman is far right on the right-hand side photograph, back row. Jimmy Delaney, front row, far left, held a unique record. He won the Scottish Cup with Celtic in 1937, the FA Cup with Manchester United in 1948, and the Irish Cup with Derry City in 1954. He came close to winning the FAI Cup in the Irish Republic with Cork Athletic in 1956, when they lost 3-2 to Shamrock Rovers. With 15 minutes to go, Cork were winning 2-0, so our director left the ground to buy champagne, returning to find his team defeated. What happened to the champagne is not known. Chairman James W. Gibson makes a signing. A look again at the fabulous team that won the FA Cup in 1948. The famous five are on the front row with Captain Johnny Carey, third from the left, with the ball. Johnny Carey signed his name as Jack Carey and Jack Rowley signed himself as John Rowley. They were both christened John. Jack Rowley was nicknamed the Gunner because of his explosive shooting. Manchester United chairman James Gibson used to holiday on the south coast and he spotted Jack playing for Bournemouth and Boscombe Athletic and paid out £3,000 for him to join the youngsters at Manchester United. Johnny Morris asked Matt Busby for a pay rise after the cup final, was immediately dropped and sold to Derby County for a British transfer record £24,500. Matt was still the Sergeant Major from his army days. He was called the Penalty King. Charlie scored 18 penalties in 4 seasons, a record that stood for more than 50 years. When training ended at United, Charlie and goalkeeper Jack Crompton would stay and practice penalties and free kicks for about 2 hours. That doesn't happen today. Charlie always told Jack where he was going to place the ball. He scored 3 penalties in one game against Aston Villa in a 7-0 victory. Aston Villa keeper Joe Rutherford said to him before his third penalty, "Where's this one going, Charlie?" "Same place, Joe," replied Charlie, and all three hit the left-hand stanchion. Allenby, Chilton and Stan Pearson couldn't believe their eyes. A 12-game tour of North America changed his life. In 1950, United went on a tour of America where they played in front of massive sellout crowds. United finished with 8 wins, 2 defeats and 2 draws. Charlie questioned the small amount of money footballers were paid compared to their evident global popularity. The maximum wage in England was £12 a week. Charlie was approached by a Colombian businessman to sign for Santa Fe for £5,000 plus £40 a week. "You'd better go or you'll die wondering," said Matt Busby. Now remember those words, because I wonder why he didn't give Charlie a chance when he returned from Colombia. Was it because he was 30 years of age? La Violencia, the violence. From 1948 to 58, there was a civil war in Colombia between the Conservatives and the Liberals, fought mainly in the countryside. La Violencia is estimated to have cost the lives of more than 200,000 people in that decade, and in 2020 fighting was still going on, this time drug-related. Into this maelstrom came a British agent called Ephraim Jock Dodds, who played in England between 1932 and 1950, scoring 201 goals in 308 games. When he was transferred from Sheffield United to Blackpool for £10,000 in 1946, he said, "It was a lovely sunny day, and after the sooty streets of Sheffield, it was like coming to paradise." He lived in Blackpool until his death in 2007. He played for Sheffield United in the 1936 FA Cup final when they lost 1-0 to Arsenal thanks to a goal from Ted Drake. Special Agent Jock Dodds. Jock had a list of 250 footballers who were interested in playing in Colombia. 5 Everton players were approached: Ted Buckle, Jack Humphries, Harry Catterick, Jack Headley and Billy Higgins. Jack Headley did travel to Colombia with Roy Paul of Swansea, but both returned bitterly disillusioned. Billy Liddell of Liverpool and Wilf Manning of Middlesbrough eventually decided against the move, although Wilf followed the wishes of his wife. Following his exploitative dealings, Jock Dodds was expelled from all football activities. His expulsion was rescinded following a successful appeal. All the players who went to Colombia were punished harshly, yet the agent, Jock Dodds, didn't even pay a fine. The period named El Dorado, 1949 to 54. In 1949, a Colombian football association called Di Mayor broke away from FIFA. FIFA responded by banning Colombia from all international competitions. 2 clubs, Millonarios and Santa Fe, offered players £100 to £150 a month. In England, the maximum was £52 a month, and signing on fees of up to £5,000. Santa Fe signed Argentinian Hector Real, Neil Franklin and George Mountford from Stoke City and Charlie Mitten from Manchester United. Millonarios signed Alfredo Di Stefano as well as Billy Higgins of Everton and Bobby Flavel of Hearts. Luis Robledo owned Santa Fe. Luis Robledo, the son of a millionaire cattle baron, was educated at Cambridge. He was an avid Arsenal supporter, hence the red and white colours of Santa Fe. He married the daughter of an English earl, Lady Bridget Paulette, debutante of her year. In August 1939, she put Morecambe on the high society map when she opened the Middleton Tower holiday camp. She made all the traveller agents for many of the footballers, and the couple are pictured there in 1950. No relation to the Robledo brothers from Chile who would eventually join Newcastle United. They had a Chilean father and an English mother. The Lima Pact. In 1950-51, the Di Maio agreed with FIFA to end El Dorado. The key requirement was that foreign players would return to their countries by 1954. Charlie Mitten is far right on the front row. Neil Franklin only played 6 games before returning to England. His wife hated the curfew, the language barrier and the terrible violence. Charlie was worshipped by the fans. Charlie played in Colombia for a year, scoring 15 goals in 34 games. At the end of his first year, Colombia joined FIFA and became subject to their regulations. As Manchester United still held his registration, Charlie would have to return to England. However, he was offered a contract by Santiago Bernabeu, the manager of Real Madrid, who was in the process of forming the all-conquering team that would feature Alfredo Di Stefano, Francisco Gento and Hector Real. Santa Fe finished in 6th place. Colombia versus Uruguay. Colombia arranged to play world champions Uruguay in a friendly, and Charlie was selected along with Di Stefano and Real. Charlie remembered the day vividly, blue skies and sunshine. He recalled this because he spent most of the game on his back, looking up at the sky when he was targeted by the Uruguay players. Charlie remembered the Uruguayans were fierce and spread the blood that day. It was running down our legs by the end of the game, but it was a great victory. He still laid on a goal for Di Stefano, and the sensational 3-1 victory proved to the people of Colombia that they could challenge the best in the world. Madrid or Manchester? Santiago Bernabeu flew to Bogota to discuss signing Mitten, Real and Di Stefano. He offered Charlie £10,000 a year plus a £10,000 signing bonus and a 3-year contract plus bonuses and a lovely house. "Come with us, Charlie, there's no money in English football," said his friend and inside left Hector Real. Hector Real and Alfredo Di Stefano both accepted the offer and changed the face of European football. Charlie Mitten would regret his decision to return to Manchester for the rest of his life. Charlie could have been part of the team that won the first 5 European Cups. Because of his age, 39, he most likely would not have played at Hampden Park as Real Madrid beat Eintracht Frankfurt 7-3 in 1959-60 before 127,000 fans, still the record attendance. When you have 2 choices, never listen to the wife. When cheeky Charlie Mitten left Colombia, he had 2 choices. Number 1, return to England because his wife was homesick. Number 2, sign for Real Madrid with Di Stefano and Hector Real. Di Stefano said, Charlie Mitten, numero uno. If we have him, we never need Francisco Gento. Gento is quick, but Charlie is much more clever. Charlie chose option number 1 and regretted his decision for the rest of his life. Back in England, Charlie flew to London from Bogota in July 1951. The pilot announced over the tannoy, "Will everyone please remain in your seats and let Mr. Charles Mitten, the famous footballer, leave the plane first." The passengers rose as one and applauded him. The players' union at this time was very weak, and establishment figures like Billy Wright dismissed the idea that players were poorly paid. Of course, Billy Wright profited hugely when Neil Franklin, England's greatest defender, was virtually put out of the game, and Wright profited to the tune of over 100 caps for England. He most likely would have got half of those if Neil Franklin had stayed. Charlie's contract with Manchester United expired on the tour of America, so Charlie disputed the charge that he had broken his contract. Facing the firing squad, Fred Howarth, Secretary of the Football League, greeted him with, "Hello Mitten, I see you've caused us some trouble." It took less than 30 minutes to find Charlie guilty. The beards and moustaches have gone, but the arrogance and Victorian attitudes were ingrained in the Football Association. One of the committee said, "Do you know you forced Manchester United to transfer you?" Neither Matt Busby or Walter Crickmer made any sort of play on his behalf. A kangaroo court. I find that very sad. We see the picture shows the 1903-04 Football League Committee. Fred Howarth was secretary from 1933 to 56, 23 years, and succeeded by Alan Hardacre, who had been sacked from the family's haulage business by his father for playing dominoes instead of working. That was a good apprenticeship to becoming league secretary. Face to face with Busby, Charlie Mitten had been fined 6 months' wages and banned for the same period when he met Mark Busby and Secretary Walter Crickmer. Franklin, Mountford, Higgins and Flavel received a 4 months ban. If the Tribunal of 9 tradesmen would not listen, he was sure that Matt Busby would. Busby listened when Charlie told him that he was a much improved player and about the new style of soccer played by Real and Di Stefano. He even offered to play a month's trial at no cost to the club. But he had challenged Busby's authority and nobody got away with that. His sergeant major personality kicked in as he told Charlie he was on the transfer list, and he was the guy that recommended he go to Colombia. He was not even allowed to use the club's training facilities. The club was bent on revenge and were making an example of him. Petty, spiteful and vindictive. Charlie began playing for the Spinners Arms, a Sunday pub team in Salford. December 7th, 1951, Mitten is transferred to Fulham for 22,000. Fulham had not won a game for 17 weeks. The Mitten bombshell hit Middlesbrough in a 6-0 win. Charlie scored 2 and laid on 4 with pinpoint passes. Johnny Haynes, Bobby Robson and Bedford Jezard would all play for England and were members of a talented forward line, but the defence just leaked goals. Fulham were relegated in 1951-52 and it would be season 1958-59 before they returned to the top flight. Top brass would watch Charlie. Many years later, Bobby Robson said, "Charlie was a marvellous player with a wonderful left foot, but the great thing about him was his ultra confidence, made us all think we were match winners." Regular visitors to Craven Cottage were Football Association Secretary Sir Stanley Rouse and England manager Walter Winterbottom. Charlie would often talk to Sir Stanley, and although he seemed to be on the side of the players, he kept quiet for the sake of his job. Rouse told Charlie quite simply, "You are the best winger in England, but you cannot be selected for England because discipline comes first." So despite the devastating wing play of Charlie, there was no room for the Bogota Bandit in the England team. End of the road. From the moment he first stepped out for Manchester United at the age of 25, through 12 months of combat in the far-flung, lush, dusty and jungle surrounds of Colombia and 4 seasons at Craven Cottage, Charlie never doubted he had the skill and speed to beat any defender in the world. In 1955, the whistle finally blew for the left winger, many considered to be the best, and Charlie remembers exactly when it hit him. "I woke up one morning and it wasn't there anymore. My pace had gone. I got up one morning and went for a training run and it wasn't there. That was it." Charlie was chatting with Peter Doherty, who said the manager's job was vacant at Mansfield and he would put Charlie's name forward to the chairman if he was interested. February 3rd, 1956, and Charlie is transferred to Mansfield for £3,500. Charlie had made 160 league and cup appearances for them, scoring 33 goals. Mansfield was struggling in the 3rd Division North, with gates of 3,500. Bringing in £400 a fortnight to meet a wage bill of £1,000 a fortnight. He needed to entice more people through the turnstiles, and he did that by implementing an all-out attacking policy which the players embraced. 8 games, 12 points, 27 goals scored, 6 conceded. Gates soared and exceeded 10,000 for the first time in 5 years. Local derby games against Chesterfield, Lincoln and Notts County attracted crowds of 14,000. Could it have been because it was entertaining? Charlie played most games. Unless he was injured, the crowds loved him. Still doing tricks at 36. Charlie could trap a high ball instantly with his thigh, his head or his chest. The crowds loved him. Wonderful skill and entertainment. At this point, I want to thank my great friend Chris Carter, whose father was a Manchester United fan, and told him Charlie's party piece was to run with the ball, but on top of it. He entered the transfer market, got Sammy Chapman on a free transfer from Crusaders and sold him to Portsmouth for £7,000. He repeated deals like this, and after one season there was a surplus of £12,500 on the transfer account. Charlie always said that the Mansfield town job was the best he ever had. The Mansfield directors wanted him to continue playing, but Charlie felt he wanted to be a full-time manager. Agreement could not be reached, so in June 1958 he joined Newcastle United, a club that was being torn apart by boardroom friction. Newcastle United manager. The boardroom at Newcastle was like a war zone that Charlie had to face every day. The only ally Charlie had was the man who signed him, Alderman William McKee, in 1958. The men against him were former chairman Stan Seymour and Rolf Taylor. Power struggle in the boardroom. Chairman William McKee gave Charlie full control of the team, but director and former manager Stan Seymour felt the board should be able to veto his team selections. Charlie enjoyed coaching the players and demonstrated how to do it. Charlie still believed in entertaining the crowd. At St James's Park, he lived up to his colourful reputation and stayed true to his creed for entertainment. He assembled an attractive side, notably the fine inside forward trio of Ivor Old Church, Len White and George Easton, and had a pair of mid-table finishes. Newcastle were relegated in 1961 when they scored 86 goals, but conceded an incredible 109. Only 7 teams out of 22 scored more. Charlie was sacked in the autumn. Events had moved to an inevitable climax. The club's AGM was scheduled for October 31st. McKeag had left for a 14-day holiday in America on October 10th, so he would be back in plenty of time for the AGM. Within a week of his departure, a secret board meeting was called, at which all 7 other directors were present. Newcastle had won 3 games on the trot, and the last one, a 7-2 thrashing of Bury at Big Lane, with 5 homegrown youngsters in the team, predicted a bright future. At the meeting of the directors, voted 7-0 for the immediate termination of his contract. On angel wings, on the Saturday after Charlie was sacked, Newcastle beat Brighton 5-0, making it 4 wins out of 5. Newcastle turned on an exhibition which left many people asking why had Charlie Mitten been sacked. The team performance was stamped with Charlie's personality. At a dinner many years later, Charlie was sat next to Alf Ramsey and got talking about the no-winger tactics employed in the 1966 World Cup win. Alf's reply was, "Charlie, find me 2 English wingers of international quality like yourself and I will play them in the national team." Both Alf Ramsey and Charlie Mitten were sacked because the men in the boardrooms were inept amateurs with huge egos. Simple answer, practice every day. When he was a youngster at 17 at United, he was told to pinpoint his crosses, not just hit and hope. His coach, Harry Ablett, would take very tall corner flags and stick them in the penalty area and tell Charlie, hit the top of the flags every time you cross, not the middle of the stick, that's the man's chest. On the top, that is his head, he'll do the rest. That is polishing the gifts you've got, and I go back to my old argument. Does it happen today? I think not. Charlie believed in specialist coaches. Don't use a former centre-half to teach a centre-forward. And of course, the reverse is true. Many clubs today have a goalkeeping coach, but what about the other 10? Immensely skilled and the heart of a lion, unbowed and as gloriously irreverent as ever. He went on to become player manager of non-league Altrincham, then took charge of Manchester's White City Greyhounds Stadium. He always loved greyhounds and owned them most of his life. At Fulham, Johnny Haynes remembers Charlie bringing one of his dogs for a massage by the trainer before running at night at Walthamstow. He also bought a racehorse in Colombia for £1,000. When Charlie managed Newcastle, he had a boy in the youth team called George Graham, and when asked why he didn't make the grade at Newcastle, George always replied, "It's because I was too busy exercising Charlie Mitten's greyhounds." George would sign for Aston Villa in 1961 and go on to play and manage Arsenal, amongst others. He would later run a sports promotion business in the city before retiring. Nobody in the boardrooms of football clubs could break the spirit of the Bogota Bandit, however hard they tried. The legend of cheeky Charlie Mitten. Charlie was one of many who fought all his life against the amateurs who ran the game. He was a truly fantastic player who was being forgotten. His dedication to improving his play by training longer than any of his teammates is an example sadly not followed today. Like Billy Meredith before him, he could land the ball on a handkerchief from the touchline. A blistering shot and the penalty king of soccer, scoring 18 in 4 years. From 1936 to 1950, he earned less than he did in one season in Bogota, Colombia. The revolutionary soccer manager, he brought in many youngsters at Mansfield with great results. At Newcastle, some of the young players he tried to sign would have taken the club to unbelievable heights. He took his young players to Holland's International Youth Tournament in Amsterdam and won it every year with his version of total football. Within weeks of getting sacked by Newcastle, his boys won the FA Youth Cup in 1961-62, beating Wolves 2-1. The club could have instigated a youth policy similar to the Manchester United after World War II. As Charlie recalled it, his scouting expeditions became a game of cat and mouse with his own directors. In 2 out of every 3 cases, what Charlie proposed, the board of directors opposed. 5 unbelievable talents slipped through Charlie's net because of amateur directors. Dennis Lowe, a 17-year-old boy at Huddersfield, was vetoed at £15,000 because Will Taylor, the former chairman, thought he had brittle bones. He would join Man City for £55,000 later on. Similarly lost were George Hurd of Clyde, scooped up by Sunderland for £42,500, following a boardroom leak, followed by Charlie Cook of Aberdeen, who was too expensive at £20,000, ending up at Chelsea for £72,000. Jimmy Greaves was too expensive at Chelsea for £25,000 before joining AC Milan for £80,000. Charlie watched Ian St John at Motherwell and thought he could be another Di Stefano, as he presented the contract to the board, but they refused to sanction the deal at £35,000. The next day, Bill Shankly went to Motherwell by Rolls-Royce, which he had borrowed from a Liverpool director, and signed him for £37,500. Just imagine, we could have had Saint and Greasy at Newcastle. A wonderful reunion. Comparing Ian St John to Di Stefano was a true compliment, because Charlie Mitten thought the Argentinian maestro was the complete footballer. They had a surprise reunion during a summer tournament in Mallorca, where Di Stefano was guesting for Mallorca, and Charlie, who only played in pre-season games, played at outside left for Newcastle. They recognised each other as soon as they ran out on the field. Mitten, you play like you play in Bogota. Okay, but not fat like me. Charlie replied, Steph, you better stop heading the ball, it's taking off all your hair. Their friendship lasted a lifetime. What might have been. End of the road for Cheeky Charlie. Charlie Mitten passed away in a style nursing home at the age of 80 on January 2nd, 2002, and was buried in Stockport Cemetery. I believe this colourful, controversial but brilliant winger has been sadly forgotten, and hopefully this talk will help to address that. The penalty king, who was so skilled and confident in his ability, he even told goalkeepers where he was going to put the ball. The people who know far more about football than me, Alfredo Di Stefano and Hector Real, saw Cheeky Charlie and said he was one of the finest footballers of any era. The Rolls-Royce of his day had only one regret in his life, not signing for Real Madrid. Charlie Mitten's philosophy was simple. If your players can't dribble, your team will be less creative, less likely to win. The ability to beat a man is a skill that has to be polished in training. That blend of pace, control and dribble. The reasons we have so few top-class players today are that most coaches are ignorant of the skills and subtleties required. And what you don't know you can't teach. You need specialised coaches, a bit like going to a doctor who will send you to a consultant, an expert in a certain field, who can fix your problem. I'm sorry I didn't see him play, too young, but reading comments from top players of his day, he was a superstar, the one and only cheeky Charlie Mitten.